I'd like to welcome everyone. And thank you, of course, for joining us for the 15th annual Steve Miller Educational Day. I am Jordan Orange, the Ruben S. Carpentier Professor and Chair of the Department of Pediatrics at Columbia. And I am honored to be here today to pay tribute to Dr. Miller's legacy. I want to thank Dr. Dodie Meyer and the Miller family for joining us today, and the Steve Miller Education Day Event Committee for helping to plan an outstanding program. I also want to recognize the representatives from the Arnold P. Gold Foundation who are here with us today. Luisa Tavito, the AVP Gold Humanism Honor Society, joining us here at Columbia. Michelle Sloan, MPA, Director of Program Initiatives, joining us via Zoom. And also thanks to Dr. Kathleen Reeves, the CEO and President of the Gold Foundation, who is traveling today and unable to attend. The foundation has been generous in its support of this event annually, and the overarching goal of the foundation is to create the gold standard in healthcare: compassionate, collaborative, and scientifically excellent care to support clinicians throughout their careers, so the humanistic passion that motivates them at the beginning of their education is sustained throughout their practice. They strive to ensure that care and respect always govern the relationship between practitioner and patient, which was of the most importance to Dr. Steve Miller, who is devoted to treating individuals with compassion, attuned to the needs of patients and their families, and committed to improving the lives of children. Dr. Miller was the Arnold P. Gold Associate Professor of Clinical Pediatrics, the Director of Pediatric Emergency Medicine at the Morgan Stanley Children's Hospital of New York Presbyterian, and the Director of Pediatric Medical Student Education. We remember him for his contributions as a physician, teacher, and leader in medical education, and especially for his commitment to instilling in his students the importance of integrating humanism in medicine. Dr. Miller was devoted to teaching his students that empathy and compassion are crucial components of good medicine, and that they should approach the treatment and care of every child and every family from a scientific and humanistic perspective. His commitment to this practice of medicine was extraordinary and continues to inspire his patients, students, and colleagues today, and of course, to be formative in how we go about everything here at Columbia. In recognition of his many achievements, he was bestowed with the Columbia University's Outstanding Teaching Award at least 5 times, and the Columbia University Presidential Award for Outstanding Teaching in 2001. Today, we continue Dr. Miller's legacy with a day dedicated to continued learning and understanding of humanism in medicine. As many of you know, events like today are vital to training the next generation of physicians and scientists dedicated to the care and treatment of children. These events allow our medical students, fellows, residents, and faculty to come together and learn from leaders in the field about new methods, innovations. But we really need support to be able to do that. And perhaps I can share with you this QR code, which would allow you to be able to help enable that through your own generosity. Certainly something that we are all truly grateful for. So before we get to today's keynote speaker, I would like to welcome my dear colleague, our department's vice chair, and of course, Dr. Miller's life partner, Dr. Dodie Meyer. It has been certainly a long time since she has graced the stage at this event, and certainly befitting on the 20th anniversary. So, Dr. Meyer, please.
Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. If Steve would be here today, he would love it that we're all here talking about him. He would definitely get here 10 minutes late, and he would never come to this institution without stopping by the ER to check how the night shift was and to say hello to the daytime shift and make sure everybody's in a good start. He would be standing back there looking at me as I presenting, waiting to hear what I had to say, to give me feedback with his quintessential blue shirt and khaki pants. As a student once said to me, Dr. Meyer, does Dr. Miller wear only one shirt or does he have many the same color? So I remember the day that Steve came home and started talking about humanism in medicine. I laughed at this term. Why did we have to explicitly use the word humanism within the practice of medicine? Wasn't it an oxymoron? This was obviously very early in my career, and little did I know. Humanism in healthcare is defined as care that is kind, safe, and trustworthy. It is now clear to me, 25 years plus after that initial conversation, that we need to focus on humanism in medicine more than ever. At a macro level, we're living through apocalyptic climate change events, witnessing never-ending wars with a grotesque loss of human life, and our political views are so polarized that we're unable to have productive, intelligent conversations, even on campus, across the political divide. Maybe it is our shared humanity that can give us some hope, that can help us to focus on what matters. In our day-to-day reality, we pour our hearts into being the best healthcare providers we can, working in this amazing medical center that generates awe-inspiring medical knowledge by a truly fantastic, committed, passionate group of people. Yet we easily lose our humanism vis-a-vis each other, and sadly, sometimes and some days towards our patients. There are weeks at a time when we are bombarded with productivity requirements, charts to write, trainings to complete, classes to teach, articles to write, and scholarship to produce. We focus on the need to get promoted. We fight with each other about credits, visibility. Our egos and need for power get in the way, and we easily forget what brought us to the practice of medicine in the first place. It is at these times that we can do what Steve described as, quote, practice the habit of humanism. So even at our worst moments, we can bring our humanism back to life. It is days like this, Rita and I were just talking about it, when we cancel our regular schedules and devote a day to learning and being, that helps us pause and reflect on where our humanism is, how we can take care of it, foster it, and let it shine. Last week marked the 20th anniversary of Steve's sudden death. For us in the family, it feels like it happened yesterday and a lifetime ago, all at the same time. After the initial shock, grief, and mourning, we've learned to live with the pain of his absence, and over the years, we have nurtured the feeling of gratitude for his life, for what he gave us, and for the legacy he left us. Most importantly for me, I feel grateful every day for the biggest gift he could have given me, which is our 3 children, Jesse, Maya, and Nico, whom I love more than words whoever could ever describe. For Colombia, a place he loved so much, we, the family, hope his legacy continues to be one where every person, regardless of role, rank, or field of practice, is called to develop a habit of humanistic communication, decision-making, and behavior. As stated in his 1999 seminal article, The Habit of Humanism, Steve described this habit as having 3 essential tasks. Quote, 1, identifying the multiple perspectives in any clinical encounter. 2, reflecting on how these perspectives might converge or conflict. And 3, choosing to act altruistically. He went on to say that, quote, teaching this model can enhance students and medical professionals' ability to think and act humanely, and it is a valuable way to make humanistic care a reflective clinical skill. Our mission as healthcare providers is to promote health and well-being while easing humanity of the burden of illness and disease. Let's get inspired by Steve's calling, by his gentle and beautiful soul, and let's commit to practice with humility and humanity so that when our time is up, we can leave this world a little better than how we found it. Thank you.
Thank you for that inspiration, Dodie. Truly. Yeah, it's an honor to be partnered with you in all we do. So now it is my pleasure to introduce you to our keynote Dr. Steve Miller speaker, Dr. Benjamin Schwartz. Dr. Schwartz is a professional artist and assistant professor at Columbia. He is a staff cartoonist for The New Yorker, where he has written and drawn cartoons since 2011. And his work has also been featured in Esquire, Airmail, and Wired. Before pursuing cartooning, he earned a medical degree from Columbia, and now he uses visual storytelling techniques to teach medical students and other healthcare professionals the art of communication and alliance building as part of the narrative medicine program here at VPNS. He also serves as the Chief Creative Officer for the Department of Surgery, where he oversees the strategic communications and marketing team that emphasizes spreading health literacy and improving access to high-quality care. Welcome, and thank you for sharing your time with us as we remember and honor the legacy of Dr. Steve Miller.
Hi. Thank you. It's so great to be here. You see, okay. No, wrong button. Okay. Hi, yes, it is great to be here. Thank you for having me. So I'm excited to be here, and I really want to start this off on the right foot, do this by the books. So let me begin with my disclosures. So I just need to tell you, this is not actually that unusual. I'm often very nervous. It's kind of my gift, but today, especially so. I have to hunch into this, or you can hear me like this? All right. I like to hunch anyway, but today I'm especially nervous because today we are here in honor of Dr. Steve Miller, and I know that means a lot. So Dr. Miller passed away when I was a first-year medical student here. It happened in just the first month or so of school. So myself, none of my classmates had the privilege to truly know him. But we spent that whole year and beyond hearing all the people around us mourn him and celebrate his life and share stories about just how amazing he was. And it really left an impression. So to be here years later and be even tangentially connected to his name, to his legacy, that is tremendously meaningful to me. And I want to thank the Department of Pediatrics, the Gold Foundation, and of course, Dr. Miller's family, especially, for allowing me to be here and to be part of this. It is a great honor. It is also really freaking intimidating. But I'm going to do my best to live up to the high standards that Dr. Miller left. And, if I don't, we just won't talk about it. It'll be okay. But let's get started for real. So I want to begin with some words from Dr. Miller. I think this is in the program too. He wrote, "Many think that medicine is too disease-oriented and technology-driven and neglects the human dimensions of illness and healing. To change this perception and the reality behind it, we must find ways to permeate each and every aspect of medicine with humanism." Now, I added the emphasis at the end, but this comes from a paper Dr. Miller wrote with his colleague on developing clinical habits of humanistic care. And in this paper, they argued the need for these habits because to that point, well, there had been a lot of great efforts to elevate humanism as a priority in healthcare. It still often felt like these efforts were a bit, in their words, on the periphery of the medical culture, right? So reading these words 25 years later, this still resonated with me. We've carved out so many more great spaces for humanism since then. We have events like today, we have classes like the ones I'll tell you about. We've definitely moved in from the periphery, but still it feels to me like we often get our humanism in discrete and irregular doses when, what we really want is to get a humanistic drip going, right? We want this stuff straight into our veins. So that's what I want to discuss today, this question of how do we get more humanism in the day-to-day of healthcare? And then I think I'm going to answer it. I think I've solved this sucker. And if that sounds absurd, that's because it is absurd, but I can't help myself because I come up with absurd ideas for a living. I'm a cartoonist. I make things like this. My job is to look at the world through cartoonist vision and take note of all the things, big and small, that frustrate us, delight us, puzzle us, and to be always on the lookout for a new idea. Say, is this something? Can I use this? Now, granted, the types of ideas I'm looking for, not necessarily the same as the ones that are going to meaningfully move the needle on this issue. But I do think there's something to the cartoonist mindset, our openness to inspiration from anywhere, the creative restlessness that keeps us in the habit of constantly brainstorming. And yes, even the silly playfulness, which I think allows us to fully tap into our imagination without getting bogged down and being too self-conscious, that I think could help us get there. But if you're going to listen to big claims like that, you probably ought to consider the source, which means, I should tell you a little bit more about myself. You just heard in my intro, I'm a cartoonist. I have an MD for some reason, but, how did that happen? Why did that happen? What can we do to make sure it never happens again? Let me tell you my story. It begins here, like literally around the corner. I was born at what used to be called Baby's Hospital, which was a fitting name because I was actually born as a baby. I spent first year or so of my life just doing baby stuff. But then I got a little bit older, a little bit wiser. This is a rare artifact from late 1900s. This is from this like 5th grade yearbook thing. They asked all the kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? My answer, folks, I never stood a chance. Where did this come from? Well, the doctor side, that came from my dad. He was and is a physician around these parts. And what little boy doesn't want to be just like his dad when he grows up, for the most part. But yeah, as a kid, being a doctor just seemed like a really cool job. You get to wear the snazzy coat. You get to yell stat whenever you feel like it. But also, I could tell even as a little kid, yes, this is a tough, demanding job, but I could see my father's unwavering commitment to it. And I knew that there had to be something special about a career that could inspire that kind of devotion. So that's the doctor part. How about the artist? Well, that came from my mother. She was and is a gifted illustrator. And she never did it professionally, but she definitely passed along some of her talent to me. You can see some of my early impressionistic work. But pretty soon my influences shifted to other things, cartoons, comic books, and comics, like Gary Larson's The Far Side. There's something just about that form, the way it combines the immediacy of illustration with the intimacy of the reading experience that just clicked with me right away. And it just made me want to draw even more. And, that practice started to pay off a bit. This is some artwork from around the time that yearbook photo was taken. And, look, I don't want to brag or anything, but these 2 pieces my parents are so proud of that to this day, they display in a place of great honor within their home, right above the toilet in their guest bathroom. All right. So, doctor, cartoonist, I knew I'd have to make a choice eventually. So I did what any reasonable person would do. I put that choice off for as long as I possibly could. I got all the way to the end of college before I knew I'd have to make a decision. Am I going to go down the doctor road or the cartoonist road? So I chose the road more traveled. I took what I like to say is the world's hardest easy way out. Easy in the sense that, well, yeah, becoming a doctor is obviously incredibly difficult. All the challenges and obstacles, they're pretty clearly laid out for you ahead of time. You know what you have to do. Whereas to become a cartoonist, I didn't even know where to start. So I did. I went to medical school here. I went on to an internal medicine residency program here. I don't get away a lot. And I learned a lot of things while doing that. Finally taught me what the knee bone is connected to. I learned what goes on behind the scenes in the operating room. But the most important lesson I learned was that there's a real big difference between having a career and having a calling, right? On paper, going into medicine was a great choice. It was intellectually stimulating, it was emotionally rewarding, and yet in reality, I was not complete. I was not my whole self while I was here. I only felt like my whole self when I was drawing, and I didn't really have much time for that, which was another thing too, time, right? When you spend yours around people who are sick and people who are dying, it really kind of hits home that time is not an unlimited resource. I knew that if I stayed on my current path, I was going to get to my eventual end and look back with tremendous regret. And I didn't want that to happen. I knew I had to make a change. I knew I had to let my true self out, even if it is a kind of weird true self. So I did. I dropped out of one of the top residency programs in the country to pursue my dreams of cartooning full time. And you can imagine just how thrilled my parents were when I told them that. But somehow it worked out because not long after, I discovered a kind of open secret in the world of cartooning. Turned out that the New Yorker, the esteemed 90-plus-year-old magazine, was essentially holding open calls for new cartoonists. Any given Tuesday, 10 a.m., anyone could go down to their offices, go up to the security desk, say, I'm here for the cartoon meeting, and you'd get buzzed in and you could go in for a 5-minute one-on-one sit down with the cartoon editor, Bob Mankoff at that time, now it's Emma Allen. Now, folks, that kind of direct access to a gatekeeper at that level is what we in the biz call bonkers, bananas. It just doesn't happen. But it did, so I knew I had to go for it. Now, the deal was you were supposed to put together a batch of 10 New Yorker-style cartoons. Okay, good. I knew a thing or two about New Yorker cartoons. I had some favorites, like this one from Danny Shanahan. And I knew that cartoons like these were called gag cartoons because every element of it is in service of one joke or gag. And as you can see, there aren't that many elements to it, just a single image, a caption with a line or two of text. What I didn't know was how to make these for myself. So I had to study. Fortunately, medicine made me a pretty good studier. I got out this big, complete collections of New Yorker cartoons, and this became my textbook. I figured I could use my keen diagnostic skills to analyze decades worth of cartoons and reverse engineer the formula for a great one. And when that didn't work, I just put together a bunch of stupid stuff like this. But I got 10 or so of these together, brought them to the editor. He took one look and he told me, no, I'm not going to take any of these. But he said, you got talent. I want you to come back next week with 10 new cartoons. Okay. So I went back to my studies and put together a better, stronger second batch. And this time when I showed it to him, this time he said, no, again, still bad. But again, he said, come back next week. And so I did. I came back and I got rejected every single week for 6 months until they finally said yes to this decidedly dumb cartoon. Then it was another 6 months of weekly rejection before they said yes a second time to this one. But after this point, I did start to become more of a regular contributor because all that practice was starting to pay off. I was starting to get the hang of the form. This is a relatively early one that my editor was very fond of. And actually, one of my friends likes this one so much that he bought the original artwork. And I don't want to brag or anything, but to this day, he displays it in his home in a place of great honor right next to his guest bathroom. So that's how I became a cartoonist with an MD, but it's not the end of the story because a funny thing happened after I established an identity outside the medical world. I got invited to come back inside the medical world, this time to teach. Okay, teach what? I'm a cartoonist now. Well, I'm invited back to teach narrative medicine. Now, I expect this is a pretty familiar term in this crowd. I mean, it's known all over the world, but it originated right here in Columbia. And its founder, Dr. Rita Sharon, continues to lead our program to this day and also happens to be in the audience today. Not that that's weirding me out or anything, it's okay. But just so we're all on the same page, narrative medicine stems from Dr. Sharon's original insight that illness, wellness, treatment, and coping all unfold as a series of intersecting stories or narratives. If we train doctors to accept their roles as receivers and transmitters of these narratives, we give them the opportunity to broaden their perspective, deepen their capacity for empathy, and ultimately deliver more valuable care. We call this building up their narrative competence. And the idea is that it helps us get a little bit better at this, at finding the nuance. In this case, the nuance between understanding illness as a problem to be solved versus understanding it as a story, as an experience, right? An experience colored by all the biases, beliefs, anxieties, etc., that one accumulates over the course of their larger life story. Narrative medicine urges us to respect these stories, and it also reminds us that our interpretations of them are in turn colored by our own stories, our own beliefs, and our own biases, right? So this point, this recognition that the way you see your own story and the way I reinterpret your story in my mind, they're always going to be a little bit different, right? And we call that aspect narrative humility. That's kind of the flip side of narrative competence. It's the way we stay empathetic without being too presumptuous. So these are kind of intuitive concepts, but they can also still feel a little bit abstract or like they may not really apply to your day-to-day. That is until you inevitably encounter a situation like this, right? Because if you're in the typical problem-solving mindset, you can't help but be frustrated by this. This is really annoying. But if you're thinking in terms of narrative and story, you understand that if, for example, you have a kid coming in with asthma who's not taking her medication, that going over all the reasons the medications can help her, even if you do that kindly, calmly, and clearly, it's not necessarily going to bring resolution to that story. Because maybe for this kid, the negative attention she feels she gets from using an inhaler at school far outweighs whatever breathing relief it provides. Or maybe it's actually her mother is skeptical of this steroid you prescribe, because anytime you hear about steroids on the news, it seems like it's a bad thing. Or maybe her father just thinks everyone's overthinking this because the kid doesn't always have breathing issues. And if the problem's not always there, why is it such a big deal? The point is, these aren't just obstacles that you kind of push past. These are legitimate parts of these people's stories, and they need to be heard and respected if you want to deliver truly humanistic care. Great. So how do you teach that? Well, step one is acknowledging that it can be taught, which is maybe more of a radical idea than it should be. I mean, it's not like before the modern push for humanism in healthcare, people were saying, empathy, alliance with our patients. We don't really care about that. No, it's always been cared about. It's always been valued. It's always been valued quite highly, but maybe valued so highly that we kind of put it out of reach. We elevate it by giving it nice big names like the art of medicine, right? And what do we know about art? We love it, but it's also fuzzy and baffling, isn't it? When we call something an art, it's kind of our way of saying this is a semi-mystical thing, Maybe you could pick this up by being in the presence of a great clinician for long enough, but you can't really teach it. Well, narrative medicine says, yeah, there is an art to this for sure, but it reminds us that art absolutely can be taught. And by centering the conversation on these skills of storytelling in particular, it gives us direction for how it can be taught. So it turns out this art of medicine can be taught by, wait for it, making and taking in art in more traditional forms, close reading novels, short stories, looking at poetry, photography, yes, even looking at comics and cartoons. Why does it work? I'll let James Baldwin explain it better than me. He said, you think your pain and your heartbreak are unprecedented in this history of the world, but then you read. It was books that taught me that the things that tormented me most were the very things that connected me with all the people who were alive, who had ever been alive. Now he's talking about novels, but this is true of art in any form. It connects us because art tells a story too and creates an experience from its audience. So when we make and examine art, we allow ourselves the chance to engage in storytelling skills in a hands-on way. in the relatively safe space of the classroom environment, so that just like we do with anatomy, pathophysiology, and all the rest, we give our students the chance to build up a knowledge base and a comfort level instead of sending them out into the wards and clinics cold. Now, my classes, we tend to be very hands-on. I have them draw, then we talk. So I'll do things like have them represent different emotions visually, and then we discuss all the nonverbal cues of communication, facial expression, body language, but also how does the environment you're standing in impact your message, the wardrobe you're wearing, everything. Do a lesson on visual perspective, 1-point, 2-point, 3-point perspective, but that dovetails into a conversation on narrative perspective. How can the same exact set of events be interpreted in dramatically different ways just based on the literal difference in point of view? One of my favorite activities is when we all do gag cartoons. It's a lesson on storytelling, economy, and efficiency. You got to get to the point quickly in healthcare, right? Well, what is gained and what is lost when you boil a message down to just its essential elements? It's not bad, right? I'm happy to report that the students really seem to get into this stuff. And actually here at Columbia, there's such an appetite for the arts that we in the narrative medicine program in recent years have been able to spin off a new initiative we call the Studio Lab, designed to create even more opportunities for people all across the health science campus to engage with the arts simply for art's sake. Within this, I run an ongoing drawing group. I call it the Drawing Board. Anyone is welcome to pop in, doodle, sketch, relax, or you can really try to beef up your technical artistic skills. One of the things I've learned since doing this is there are a lot of really gifted artists and illustrators on this campus. It's actually really demoralizing because I thought that was my special thing. But to be clear, when it comes to the narrative medicine classes, most of the students are not gifted visual artists, and that's a-okay because they're not here to become visual artists, they're here to become doctors. All I want from them is to go through the experience of trying to communicate through drawing, because drawing, as the cartoonist Chris Ware once said, isn't a technical skill at all. It's a means of seeing and thinking. And for them, it's a relatively unfamiliar means of seeing and thinking, which means that the cartooning is pushing them out of their comfort zone gently and slowing them down and giving them more of a chance to do a little more of this, to stop and think, right? Because as simple as it sounds, this is where real breakthroughs occur, isn't it? When you get out of the automaticity of your routines and take a moment to reflect, that's when you're at your empathetic best. And on that note, I actually want to stop and throw a medical humanism hot take at you. All right, you ready for this? So I just said empathy a bunch. We use that word all the time in these spaces. Of course we do. It's very important. But I think the way we talk about empathy sometimes implies, and sometimes we explicitly state it, that we're saying medicine has an empathy problem, all right? And these humanistic efforts are here to fix that problem. And look, I'm not saying there aren't empathy issues in healthcare, right? There's research that indicates that a physician's empathy may actually decrease over the course of their training. Certainly burnout is a real thing. And anecdotally, we've all met a doctor or two who could be maybe, a little bit nicer. But I would say that by and large, people who devote themselves to healthcare tend to be amongst the most empathetic people you will ever meet. And so when you tell a bunch of really empathetic people that there's an empathy problem, it can be, one, a little bit demoralizing, but two, more insidiously, it can also make it easier for them to say, well, I guess this doesn't really apply to me. I don't have that issue. So I prefer to frame things less around empathy and more around attention. All right. So if you've been in my class, one of the first activities I always give the students is I ask them to reproduce an iconic image straight from memory, no reference. I do this because it's a lesson on the difference between looking at something and paying attention to it, right? We've all seen Mickey Mouse a million times. We've never had to actually pay attention to the details of his visual design. So this is just a reminder that attention comes at a cost, right? To pay attention to one set of details, we cannot at the same time give our attention to another. In healthcare, we have to spend so much of our attention on the details of a disease process that we can easily lose track of some other pretty important details. But the key here is this is not due to some sort of character flaw. This is not due to some sort of lack of empathy necessarily. This is much more like a side effect of a system working exactly as we intended it to, right? Because think about it. We've been talking about doctors as storytellers. Truth is, doctors have always been trained to be excellent storytellers. It's just that they've been trained to tell a certain type of story, right? They've been trained to actually be hands-on editors. They take in a story from their patient and they immediately rewrite it as a story of illness. We want this to happen. This is a good thing. This is where diagnosis and treatment comes from. But it does take a lot of focused attention. And when you are in full-on doctor vision mode like that all the time, it doesn't matter how kind, how caring, how empathetic you are at risk of losing track of the narrative thread, right? So with that in mind, going back to this issue of how can we add more humanism to the day-to-day, to me, what this suggests is what we're after are opportunities to momentarily shift attention out of doctor vision without being so disruptive that you can't easily shift back into it, finding that balance. Now, in this paper, Dr. Miller and his colleague addressed this by proposing these habits for clinical reflection, what an individual can do to be more mindful of where their attention is placed. That's really important. That's crucial. What I want to talk about is what we can do from the other end. How can we create a system that is more supportive of that kind of reflection? How can we seed more reminders around us to reflect? Where can we put the side mirrors of humanism up so that we don't miss anything in our blind spot? I don't have an easy answer for that because there are none. We have to get creative with this. We have to come up with new ideas. How do we do that? How does that work? Well, I'll start by telling you how it don't work. It don't work like this. We like to think that it does, that ideas just sort of come to us in these moments of inspiration. Aha, right? I wish. We have to go after them. It is actually a slow, messy, active process to find an idea, to create an idea. And it's one that's governed much more by fuzzy things like hunches and instincts than the clear rules and best practices that we may be more comfortable with. Everyone's creative process is a little bit different. I can give you some insight into my own. It begins, as many things do these days, with my phone. I have a notes file on my phone note app, Cartoon Ideas. I've used the same file my entire cartooning career, so it is quite long at this point. And if you were to look inside, you would think it is the deranged ravings of a madman, which maybe it is. But the way it works is as I go throughout my week, I just jot down any little thing that makes my cartoonist sense tingle. Could be a word, a turn of phrase, a behavior, a scenario, could just be something I feel like drawing. Point is, they all go into this notes file, and at the end of the week, I gather these up. These become my leads. And I go through this exercise of free association where I take these leads and I go down different rabbit holes of questions and connections until I've worked some of them up into fully formed ideas. So for example, I can take something as mundane as snow. Maybe it was snowing on a winter day and then just start, snow. What do we know about snow? Snow is cold. It comes in snowflakes. Snowflakes are unique. There's snowballs, snow angels, snowmobiles, keep going. Snow is seasonal. Well, it comes and goes. What if it didn't go away? What if it was always snowy? Well, wait, you dum-dum, that's a real thing. There's places like the Arctic, right? Okay, well, what do they got there? They got interesting animals. They have penguins. They have polar bears. Actually, wait, I got a hunch. I think polar bears are funny. Maybe we can do something there. Let's keep experimenting. What are the variables? There's the name, polar bear. Okay, polar chair, polar hair. How about the other side? Solar bear, bear with solar panels. Bipolar bear, could be a bear on a psychiatrist's couch. No, what about another variable is the environment? They're in someplace really cold. So what if we flip that, put them someplace really warm, send them to a tropical vacation, put them in a sauna, in a schwitz? Would a polar bear like that, or would that be really uncomfortable for them? What about their visuals? They're all in white. Is there a white after Labor Day joke? That's kind of hacky. maybe they want to wear a color, they want to wear plaid. What happens when I wear white? I know I'm going to get a stain on myself. It's really stressful. It's frustrating. Actually, would a polar bear have to worry about that all the time? That's kind of funny to me. I think that could be something. And that eventually becomes this cartoon, right? Which is a fully formed idea, and one the New Yorker liked enough to publish. Actually, they like this one so much that they put a big giant print of it up on the wall in their offices, which is really cool, right? And I don't want to brag or anything, but they didn't just put it anywhere in the office. They put it in a place of great honor, right next to the guest bathroom. But not all ideas are going to be worthy of being bathroom adjacent. Trust me, I have the rejected cartoons to show for it, right? The lesson is creativity, it turns out, is a volume process. It is quality through quantity. To get to a fully thought through, well-formed idea, you have to get a lot of bad half-baked ideas out of the way first. If you just wait for the good ideas to hit you, you're going to be waiting a long, long time. So with that in mind, I thought, maybe let's stop waiting. I started a new note, all right? And I want to fill this note with some leads, all right? So we're trying to add more humanism to medicine. So who are some of the humans in medicine? Just jot down a few. It's not everyone, but we're trying to add more humanism to the everyday aspects of healthcare. So for these different people and beyond, what are some of the everyday aspects for them? Again, just a few. I'm not worried about being exhaustive. I'm not worried about having clean, consistent categories. I'm not worried about anything at this point. Just trying to have some leads, some starting points. Now that we have that, now comes the fun part. We get to be creative, but now also comes the scary part, because this is where we open ourselves up to failure. If we proceed from this, we are going to have some bad ideas, some half-baked ideas. And that thought alone, even if you're just brainstorming by yourself solo, that can stop you before you even start. But this is too important to stop. So I had an idea. I had a thought. I thought maybe it would be helpful if I got some of the bad ideas out of the way for us. What do you think about that? I'm going to do something I don't usually do when I'm here on this campus. I'm going to go full cartoonist on you. I have taken these leads already, started brainstorming, and just started jotting down ideas on these index cards here. And I thought maybe I could read a few to you, and we could ask ourselves, is this something? Is there something to these ideas? Does that sound okay? Can I read to you some of my bad ideas that I mentioned? These are bad. But here we go. All right, I'm sorry. First idea. You know how in baseball they have the manager wear the same outfit as the player, even if he's like an old, schlubby, out of shape guy? New idea. Doctors and patients wear the same outfit. All right. It's a nice signal that we're all on the same team. Plus, if we did that, I bet it wouldn't be too long before we came up with a more dignified gown for patients. Something that lets them feel a little bit more like themselves and a little bit less like a piece of deli meat. I think that could be something. Next, how about more pieces of flair on the white coat? All right, we got, some badges, some pins and all that, but let's really fill the space. Let's do like, what the military folks do, that whole thing. Why can't we do that? Like, this badge represents my 200th appendectomy, or like this row represents each of the Julys I made it through on service. Let's really fill the space and turn that white coat into a thing that tells your story, doesn't just sort of flatten you as a doctor. No? All right. This is sort of an alternate pitch. A kid gets a cast, everyone signs the cast, right? That's sweet. How about the patient sign the doctor's white coats? All right. And now everywhere you go, you carry the name of all the people you help with you. Is that a HIPAA violation? Maybe. But it's a really nice thought, right? I could say in pediatrics, come on, what kid wouldn't be tickled to write their name on their doctor's coat and then like point to it every time they come for a visit? That's a winner, all right? No. Next, Healthcare Hall of Fame. All right, let me explain. So we have a ceremony when we first give you the white coat, right? Why not at the end? Why not at the end when you're done with it? Okay. If you last long enough in this career, you deserve to be inducted into some sort of Hall of Fame. All right. Here's how I think it could work too. What happens at the white coat ceremony? We give you the short white coat, right? The little one. I propose for every year of your medical career, we add another inch to your coat. Okay. And then so like by the time it's dragging on the floor, that's the signal that you're eligible for the Hall of Fame. All right. And I'm not going to force you to retire. We can have like a trimming ceremony or something if you need more time. But getting that annual inch is going to become a new milestone you can look forward to throughout your career and a natural point to stop and reflect. All right, next. Cure hospital acquired hanger. All right, I get it. You're busy. You can't always find time to eat, even hit up the vending machine. What can we do to bring some food to you? Can we get some snack bowls in the nursing station, in the supply closet? But better yet, you know, we got those computers on wheels, the cows. Guys, snacks on wheels, sows. This thing writes itself. Let's do that. Next, more tchotchkes. All right, what's a tchotchke? Tchotchke is like a small decorative little like piece of crap, but like meaningful, personal crap, right? So I get that healthcare spaces need to be neat and tidy, but a little bit of clutter I think is okay, especially if it allows for personal expression. So the new thing is going to be when you start working for a medical center, you get onboarded, you get your ID card, you go to orientation, and you're asked to bring in 3 meaningful knickknacks from home. All right, next. This one just says hide shit, but I can explain. So, you know, we've all had the experience. You put on a winter coat or something, you put your hand in the pocket, you find something you forgot about. That's a small moment of delight, discovering something, right? We can manufacture the delight of discovery. We can hide things. Hiding things is fun. Okay, I hide things in all of my New Yorker cartoons. This is real. If you look close enough, you can always find the names May and Andy somewhere in the cartoons. Now, May and Andy, those are the names of 2 people that are very special to me, my accountant and lawyer. I hide their names. It makes the cartoons even more meaningful to me. And people seem to like it even if they don't know who I am or who they are. So I propose we hide like a bunch of little tiles all throughout offices, waiting rooms, wherever, right? One side they could have maybe a little piece of art. On the other side, we'll number them. And you'll be like, oh, I found number 57. And you'll bring it to the lobby and say, oh, 57, that goes here. And over time, these tiles will come together to form one big mosaic image. They'll be really nice and beautiful. Can you picture that? Isn't that nice? Try harder to picture that. That's a good one. Next. Okay. Let's talk about the waiting room. First up, let's add a photo booth to the waiting room. All right. We love them at weddings and bar mitzvahs, right? We're going to love them here. It's not for fun, though. It's part of the visit. You check in, you take a selfie. Now that selfie, that can go in your chart, and we have a dynamic image of you. So we can show, not tell, when we talk about you being in your usual state of health. And better yet, we have a changing image of you so that we have a more visceral connection to the human behind all the data and numbers within the chart. That's got to be something, maybe? No? Okay. We're going to next rebrand the waiting room. Okay, not just give it a new name. Let's think, what happens in the waiting room? You're probably in one of 2 mindsets. You're either really locked in on this visit you're about to have, or you're doing anything you can to not think about this visit. So we're going to redo the waiting room as 2 areas. There's going to be the preparation zone and the distraction zone. In the prep zone, we're going to have some what to expect materials, some pen and paper so you can jot down questions you want to ask. You could even have some of the medical literature so you can see the same stuff the experts see. On the other side, we'll have the usual magazines, but let's throw in some arts and craft supplies, maybe a board game or 2. Maybe we can even spring for like some phone chargers, computer chargers, a place to put your laptop down. Let people get a little work done while we disrupt their day to have them sit around. That's nice. That could be something or not. Okay. Next, no. Okay, so boom, we fixed the waiting room. What happens after the waiting room, though? You move on to the next waiting room. You got to wait in the exam room. What can we do there? Okay, guys, you're gonna like this one. 2 words, entrance music. WWE style, warm up the crowd, entrance music. Okay, 1, it is functional. Now you get a little heads up before someone walks in on you while you're in the middle of changing. And 2, it is awesome, right? Maybe the doctor chooses their own entrance music. Maybe the patient chooses it for them. I mean, we could apply this to the inpatient setting. Could you imagine rounding in the back room and all of a sudden you're like, oh, what's that? That's ID consult coming in. Or, oh, social work out of nowhere. That's fun. Come on, we could do that. Next, okay. After the visit, post-visit prize cabinet. My kids go to the dentist. They get to choose a little toy or sticker at the end. Why do they get all the fun? Everyone likes a reward. So what's a good prize for a grown-up? I don't know. It could be like a QR code that takes you to some funny memes. It could be an easy to cook recipe. It could just be a sticker. We like those I voted stickers. It could be like a I let myself be taken care of by another adult or something. We'll workshop that, but there's something there. All right. No. Okay. How about some on medical education? First off, I'm pitching you a 5 and 5 rule. Okay. This is for students on rotations. Every time an attending gives you one of these casual, hey, why don't you do a 5-minute presentation on the clotting cascade tomorrow morning type of throwaway assignments, that attending then in turn has to do a 5-minute presentation on your likes and interests so that they understand what they're pulling you away from while you work on that. All right. So the student's still beefing up their knowledge, but now the attending's getting to know them better as a person too. That's a win-win. Okay. Next, narrative pimping. Okay. What's pimping is when the teacher like puts the student on the spot. Quick, tell me 37 triggers of AFib. Don't love it as a didactic method. But if you're going to do it, let's throw in some more person-centered questions there. Like, quick, what are 5 things that this patient's looking forward to doing after she's discharged tomorrow? Or, quick, who came to visit him during visiting hours yesterday? What's their relationship like? Shift the attention a little bit. No? Okay. Next, you remember Mr. Rogers, right? He did these are the people in our neighborhood bit. I'm pitching you these are the people in our hospital rotation for MCY. All right. During MCY, major clinical year, the students go through medicine, surgery, OB-GYN, all the specialties, right? How about a month where they shadow all the other different players at the hospital, spend a few days with nursing, with social work, with transport, with the blood bank, with billing, with the custodial staff. Let them see the day-to-day experience of all the other people that they're going to be spending the whole rest of their careers working with. That could be something. Next, okay, we know CME credits, right? Continuing medical education. Why do we have those? It's a way of saying at a system level, we value that you stay up to date on the science and best practices. So I am pitching you CHE, continuing humanistic education. This is our way of saying we value that you remain a well-rounded human being that occasionally takes off the doctor vision goggles. How are you going to earn CHE? Well, this is the best part. You're not going to have to go to a new conference or take an extra test or anything. You're going to earn CHE by doing the stuff you're already doing to be a well-rounded person. You went to a great show at the Met last month. I hope you saved the ticket because you can redeem that for CHE. You read a great novel last month, binged a good show on Netflix. Tell me about it. That's CHE. You went to a dinner party and you spent the entire time without talking about the hospital or medicine. Boom, that's like 30 CHE credits right there, guys. That's really good. All right. Okay, next, let's talk about the electronic medical record, EMR. First up, you should be able to customize your notes in the EMR a la MySpace pages from the early 2000s. Okay, someone sees a note from you in the system, they should know it is a note from you. It should have your distinct colors, your fonts, your backgrounds. Guys, it could play your entrance music as it loads. This to me is a no-brainer. We ought to be on this right now. Next, though, how about we have a truly two-sided EMR? meaning equally open to doctors and patients, right? What do we do now? We have the thing where the medical center owns the record and we give the patients the Diet Cola version, the MyChart stuff. Let's bump them up to the big leagues. All work on one thing. The doctors can write their notes here, patients over here. You can still have parts that are off limits to each side, but if we were all working on one true system, that would go a long way towards being a constant reminder that this is one collaborative story. And if that's too technologically difficult, what you can do is just sort of like tilt your computer screen so that they could see a little bit more of what you're writing when you're typing. Just a thought. Okay. Next, this is a hot topic. Don't want to ignore. Let's talk about AI, artificial intelligence, because I do think it could play a role in the future of humanism in healthcare. Here's my AI pitch to you. I propose we take the millions of dollars we're going to spend on some third-party AI smart chatbot for patients and instead spend that money on buying 2-ply toilet paper for the entire enterprise. All right. Or maybe lowering the cost of parking or putting in more automatic doors or better lighting or any of the countless little things that make the day-to-day struggles of being a human being just a little bit easier. How about we invest in that? Could that be something? And yes, I get it. I get that that would be a true investment. But, consider this. One of the hats I wear around here, I do like creative direction for marketing communication stuff. Let me tell you, the first medical center that truly invest in the small but concrete experiential details of humanism, they're the ones who are going to have a real market differentiator on their hands, right? I mean, what is a more compelling message to you? Something like this, how great we are, or something like this, says what we can do for you. I know where I'd rather go. Which brings me to, if we can seriously invest in humanism, we should market the hell out of it, okay? And not because it's going to line our pockets, although I am certain it would be great for business, but actually because I think it will help us further commit to the cause. Now think about it. What's our message to the outside world? Not just us, every medical center. It's all a variation of the same thing. We talk about how cutting edge we are, innovative, high quality, top ranking, all stuff that is true, all stuff that is good. But what does this mean to the average person? Can the average person tell the difference in terms of which treatment is more cutting edge than the next? It all seems pretty impressive. But if our message to the world is that we are going to treat you with more dignity and respect than anywhere else, that we are going to make you feel more like a human being than anywhere else, right down to the little details, anyone can judge us on that. Now we're really on the hook to deliver, all right? And that kind of public accountability, that's going to force us to keep our attention on this. So that I think truly could be something. And okay, on that note, I could keep torturing you, but I will stop there. So look, how did I do? Were they all gold? Oh, you're very kind. Were they all gold? No, of course not. But was there maybe something interesting buried in there? No, they were terrible. But maybe there was something so memorably stupid in there that it'll stick in your mind and get your own wheels turning and to keep turning. Because if we want to do this, if we want to keep adding more humanism to the day-to-day of the medical culture, we're going to need a lot of ideas. In fact, because culture is a dynamic thing, it never stops changing, we're always going to need new ideas just to keep up with it. Not all of them will be winners, but that's why we have to be as open to as many ideas as possible and open to them coming from anywhere and from anyone, right? The reason this is still a relevant issue 25 years later isn't because we haven't been doing stuff since then. It's because this is a moving target. It's always going to be difficult to reach, but I know that we can do it. We have the right talent. We have the right skills, the right dedication. And more importantly, I know we have the right people. I get the privilege of working with them all the time, right? We are in great shape. We are going to hit this goal as long as we move forward, we continue to pay attention to where we're going. And as long as we give ourselves the room, the encouragement, and the permission to get creative. even if it means tolerating some half-baked ideas along the way. Thank you.
So I think at this point we can welcome a few questions, and then we have a reception in the gallery. So if anybody would like to, I will mention that when Ben's office was on the 17th floor, one of the first things we did in opening this new chapter of the department was redo the bathrooms, and by intention created destination bathrooms on the 17th floor for all to enjoy and come partake in. But the questions, please. Please.
Obviously, we're all laughing. There's lots of funny things going on. Where does humor come into our relationship with patients?
Thing about these questions is they're always good questions that I don't have good answers for. That was not intended as an editorial comment. Is this safe? Can I talk now? Okay. Where does it come? I don't know exactly where it comes into your relationship with patients directly, because I think that is much more of a case-by-case type of thing. Humor is a powerful thing. It can bring us closer together. It can sort of be an accelerant on a relationship, make you comfortable, more quickly. But, you know, it's also a dangerous thing too. Humor is like, you know, anything. It's like a medication with some dangerous side effects. If you misuse it, use it at the wrong time, use it at the wrong dosage, you risk alienating someone, jeopardizing the relationship. So, you know, there's not a good answer there other than you kind of have to feel it out. But that, you know, I personally, I guess there'd be some people that would say it has no real place in the doctor-patient relationship because you need a certain type of distance that humor might, bridge that gap. I think it's okay to have that. Remember, also, I'm not a real doctor, but I think it's okay to have that relationship if both sides are open to it. I think humor, just in general, in your medical practice, is a valuable thing in terms of, one, coping with all the extremely serious stuff that you have to deal with. It's just a good release valve. And two, I do think it helps get you in a different kind of mindset than you would otherwise, and allows you to see things from a different perspective, make some different connections than you might otherwise.
Yeah, I think we just got the next idea, the consent for humor forum.
Yes.
So, yeah, please.
I loved this talk. I don't think some of your ideas were actually crazy at all. Made me think of things to do, but a plug for Pediatrics. This is a place where we can use humor. I've always thought of myself as a stand-up comic in front of the children. It's another role you can play. As pediatricians, we can be more playful. Maybe not in every field, maybe not in every situation, but this is a joy of pediatrics. That humor plays such a part in what we do to delight the children, and hopefully by then also the parents. So I'm putting that plug in for Pediatrics as the, funniest, most enjoyable career for all the medical students here. This is our plug. You can be who you want, and you can joke, and you can put on a clown's nose, and it's totally acceptable.
Rita.
So, Ben, that was stunning. That was just stunning, because in part of the seriousness underlying the whole presentation, I'm wondering if you use your creative vision desire, where would you like to bring the drawing board next? We went to the medical students. Where does it belong? The ER, the C-suite? Where would you like to bring your drawing board?
So the drawing board, which again is this sort of ongoing drawing group, I'd like to just grow it to be open to as many people as possible. I mean, in terms of aspirations for the drawing board, my true goal would be for it to have a physical home, like I want it to be less, this is a room I managed to rent for an hour and let's all meet here, and more just a destination anyone can drop in on at any time. You could sort of have open hours and it becomes a place where you could play or you could process. That's where I'd like to go with it.
Thank you. Thanks for a wonderful talk. I was a resident here and got to know and work with Steve Miller for 2 years. He made a huge impression on me. I went into pediatric emergency medicine. My question for you is, so you showed us the picture from your 5th grade yearbook, and when you close read the caption there, you've got an or, right? Like, I want to be a comic book artist or a doctor. And to me, that's so telling that you had already been socialized as a 5th grader to think that that was an or statement and that you had to pick one or the other. And I think that's somewhere where we've kind of gone off the rails in medicine. And I'm wondering, in your opinion, how do we get back to the place where you can actually be both things? You can be an artist and a doctor, and they're actually 2 pieces of the same, penny. How do you get back to that?
Yeah. So, well, one, that's a great observation. Actually, in earlier drafts of this talk, before I had to cut things back, I made an explicit point about how it didn't even occur to me that it could be an and type of statement. But I think the reality, maybe this is too optimistic, but I think we're kind of there. I mean, just in the time that I've been teaching in this program, which I guess now is, adding up, over a decade or so, I've already seen this shift of, the students that come in, we're still sort of at the start, we were still sort of opening their eyes to this, that, you can have a place for the arts. Whereas more and more now, the students come in expecting this. This is kind of the standard, which is amazing. And it's also amazing because it means that they're the ones who are going to be hungry to raise the standard even further. So, I speak to students all the time who are working on a side project that's creative. They don't always know where there's an official home within their efforts to support this, but, they're also not letting that stop them because it's driven by their need to express themselves. I think as we go further, we will find more and more homes for these, but I think we're in good shape.
Well, that's a great point for us to break. We'll have a reception out in the back, and then we'll rejoin here at 10 for the next part of the agenda. So again, please join me in honoring Dr. Miller and thanking Dr. Schwartz. Awesome. Thanks so much for your great lecture.
That would be too much.
That was fantastic. So, yeah, it's so like how do you publishing collection of your works?
My cartoons have been in a bunch of collections, the Keys collection, the Irving stuff. I never put my own.
Yeah.